This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Welcome to a deep dive into all things mammoth. It sounds like you want to figure out how all those different types of mammoths fit together.
And maybe meet a few of their relatives along the way.
Exactly. To do that, we've got some really cool sources like scientific papers about evolution
Research on mammoth evolution.
and even cave paintings.
It's amazing what we can learn from how ancient humans saw these creatures.
Right. It's going to be like we're detectives.
Definitely.
And to get you even more excited, did you know that woolly mammoths are actually more closely related to Asian elephants?
Than African elephants.
I know. Crazy. Right.
So are you ready to travel back in time?
Absolutely. I'm ready to learn all about this prehistoric family.
Well, first we need to set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
The word mammoth makes it sound like it's one animal, but it's actually a whole group called a genus.
Okay, so there are a bunch of different types of mammoths.
Yeah. And the genus name is Mammuthus. But hold on, we're not done yet.
Oh, there's more.
Way more. Mammoths are part of a larger group called an order called proboscideans. Yeah, and this order contains all sorts of cool animals.
Like
elephants,
Okay, sure.
but also some lesser-known animals.
Oh, come on. What else is there beside elephants and mammoths?
Well, there are mastodons,
Mastodons.
and also gomphotheres.
Gomphothere?
Yeah, gomphotheres, we'll talk about miles, don't worry. But basically, all of these animals share a common ancestor.
So they are all part of this giant family.
Exactly. It's like a huge family reunion.
I like it. But what exactly makes an animal a proboscidean?
Well, that's a good question, and all proboscideans share certain features.
Okay, like what?
The most obvious one is tusks.
Duh, they're huge.
Yeah, those are actually modified incisor teeth.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And another big feature is their trunks.
Okay, yeah, I guess you can't forget about the trunk.
Nope, that's essentially a really long nose combined with the upper lip.
Wow, so the nose and lip are like one thing.
Yep, and the last key feature is their teeth, and specifically their molars. We'll come back to those later, but they are super cool.
Okay, so tusks, trunks, and molars.
Those are the big things that all proboscideans have in common.
Got it. And I guess the big question is, how are they all related to each other?
Yeah, exactly. And for a while, figuring that out was really hard.
Yeah.
Scientists used to look at the skeletons and teeth and compare them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But now, thankfully, we have another tool,
Ooh, what is it?
genetics.
Oh, yeah, DNA.
Exactly. So we can compare the DNA of these ancient animals just like we do with humans.
That's so cool. So where do we even begin with mammoths? Where do they come from?
Well, let's go back about 6 million years.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 million years ago
Okay.
to Africa.
Okay.
And we find a mammoth called Mammuthus subplanifrons.
Wow, what a name.
You know what's cool about them?
What?
They already had spirally twisting tusks.
So they were already rocking the classic mammoth look,
They sure were.
but they didn't stay in Africa forever.
Nope. Over time, they left Africa.
So where did they go?
All over. They spread across continents.
Right.
And as they did, they evolved and new species formed.
So like as they moved, they changed?
Exactly.
That's incredible.
So we see them spreading through Europe and Asia.
Okay.
And along the way, we start to see distinct species.
Ooh, like what?
Well, one is the southern mammoth.
What a cool name.
Right. The scientific name is Mammuthus meridionalis, and they were huge.
Okay.
And then there's the steppe mammoth.
The steppe mammoth. Okay.
Yeah, Mammuthus trogontheri.
Got it.
And these guys lived in the grasslands of Eurasia.
So all these different mammoths lived in different places.
Yep. And you know what else is cool? Their molars tell a story.
Molars?
Yeah, their teeth for chewing.
Oh, okay.
So as they moved into new areas, their molars adapted to the food.
Oh, that makes sense.
So they got more ridges or different shapes to help them chew up different plants.
So like the molars were like a specialized tool.
Exactly like a custom-made tool for eating.
That's awesome. But out of all those mammoths, there's one we all know and love.
The woolly mammoth.
Of course. What's their story?
Well, they are a true icon of the Ice Age.
That's right. Super fuzzy.
Yeah, and they evolved from the steppe mammoth.
Okay.
And they had to adapt to some serious cold.
Yeah, those Ice Age winters would be brutal. So how did they survive?
Insulation.
Okay, but like how?
Well, they had a thick woolly coat. Of course, that's where they get their name.
Okay, yeah,
But they also had small ears and tails.
to keep warm.
Exactly. Less surface area means less heat loss.
Warm.
And they even had a hump of fat.
Like a camel?
Sorta, yeah. It helped them stay warm and gave them energy.
Yeah, so they were really well suited for the cold.
They really were perfectly designed.
And didn't we find some frozen woolly mammoths?
We did. Some incredible specimens.
Oh, I've heard about this. What were their names?
Well, there's Luba, a baby mammoth.
Ah.
They found her with milk still in her stomach.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And then there's Yucca.
Yucca, okay.
Yeah, a young woolly mammoth. And Yucca shows signs of predator attacks,
Oh no.
but also human interaction.
Wow. So we have evidence of humans interacting with mammoths.
We do. And these frozen mammoths are like windows into the past.
I bet it's incredible for scientists.
It really is. They help us understand their lives so much better.
That's so cool. But we've talked a lot about mammoths now. What about those other proboscideans?
You mean like the mastodons and gomphotheres?
Yeah. Where do they fit in?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
I'm ready.
It's time to meet the rest of the family.
Oh, let's do it.
So let's start with the mastodons. They're often confused with mammoths,
Yeah, I bet.
but they are a different branch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they belong to the family Mammuthus.
Okay, so a different family, but still in the same order?
Exactly. And their teeth are a big clue to how they lived.
Oh, okay. So what about their teeth?
Well, unlike mammoths that have those high-ridged molars, mastodons have cone-shaped cusps.
Cusps? What are those?
Imagine little mountains on their teeth.
Okay, I can picture it.
And those cusps were perfect for crushing and grinding tough plants.
Oh, so like woody plants.
Exactly. So they were eating different things than mammoths.
Interesting. So they had their own food niche.
Exactly. They were masters of the forest buffet.
What a great way to put it.
They were browsing on twigs, leaves, and even bark.
Wow, so they weren't competing with the mammoths for food?
Nope, they had their own role to play in the ecosystem.
That makes sense.
Mm.
But what about the gomphotheres?
Ah, yes, the gomphotheres, another fascinating branch.
What made them special?
Well, imagine a proboscidean with shovel-like tusks.
Shovels.
Yeah, their lower tusks were flattened and kind of scoop-shaped.
Wow, that's so different.
Right. And for a long time, scientists thought they used those tusks to scoop up plants from the water.
Oh, like they were living in swamps.
Yeah, but as it turns out, that might not be the whole story.
Oh, what do we think now?
Well, we've looked at their teeth more closely.
Okay.
And the wear patterns suggest they were actually browsers,
Browsers meaning?
meaning they ate leaves and twigs from trees.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they used those tusks to strip bark or dig for roots.
Oh, interesting. So not so much water plants, but more like forest plants.
Exactly. They were like prehistoric foresters.
I love it. And where do they live?
Well, they first appeared in Africa about 23 million years ago.
Wow, 23 million. That's a long time.
It is, and from there they spread to Eurasia and even North America.
Wow, all over the place.
Yep. And they lived for millions of years.
That's incredible.
And they evolved into all sorts of different forms.
Really?
Yeah, each with their own adaptations.
Wow. So gomphotheres were pretty successful.
Well, success is a tricky word when we're talking about evolution.
How so?
Well, even though they lived for a long time and spread far and wide, they did eventually go extinct.
Oh, right. Like most of the animals we've been talking about.
Exactly. So I guess you could say surviving is the real measure of success.
Yeah, true. Sadly,
Yeah.
even the best adaptations can't always save you.
Unfortunately not.
So what happened to the gomphotheres? Why did they go extinct?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but climate change probably played a role.
Yeah, those big temperature swings would have been rough.
And don't forget, they were sharing their world with other large herbivores.
Right, like mammoths and mastodons.
Exactly. So competition for resources could have been a factor.
So it's like a big puzzle with lots of pieces.
Yeah, a lot of things can contribute to extinction.
Right, and sometimes those pressures become too much.
And even the most adaptable creatures can disappear.
That's kind of sad.
It is, but their story's still amazing.
Yeah, it really shows how powerful evolution can be.
Right. They were able to adapt and change and survive for millions of years.
It's inspiring in a way.
And their fossils give us a glimpse into a world that's gone.
I know, it's incredible to think about these giant creatures roaming around.
It really is, and it makes you wonder what else is out there waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so we've talked about mammoths, mastodons, and gomphotheres. Are we done with the proboscideans?
Not quite. There's one more branch of the family we need to meet.
Oh, really? Who else is there?
The stegodons.
Stegodons. I've never heard of them.
They're pretty cool. They had their own unique adaptations.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, imagine a proboscidean with really long and straight tusks.
Wow, longer than a mammoth.
Oh, yeah, and unlike mammoths and mastodons, they had lower tusks, too.
What? Two sets of tusks?
Yep, but the lower tusks were fused together.
What does that mean?
It means they were joined to form a scoop-like shape at the front of their lower jaw.
Wow, so they had these giant spear-like tusks on top and a scoop on the bottom.
Exactly. They must have looked pretty intimidating.
I bet. What were they using all those tusks for?
Well, we're not entirely sure, but the upper tusks were probably for display.
Like to attract mates or scare off rivals?
Right, and they could have also used them to strip bark from trees or dig for roots.
Makes sense. And the lower tusks, the scoop.
Well, some scientists think they might have used it to scoop up vegetation or dig in the soil.
So it's like they combined features from mammoths and gomphotheres?
It's possible. And they were really successful.
So where did they live?
They evolved in Asia about 11 million years ago.
Okay.
And from there, they spread throughout Southeast Asia.
Wow.
They made it all the way to India in the west and Japan in the east.
That's quite a range.
Yeah, and they lived for millions of years and even overlapped with early humans.
Wow. So they were around when our ancestors were.
They sure were.
That's incredible.
So we've got these stegodons in Asia, right? And they're living alongside early humans.
It's just mind-blowing to think about those interactions.
I know, right? Imagine seeing one of these creatures in the wild.
I can't even imagine. But wait, do they have any, like, cultural significance?
And the mammoths.
Yeah, like did people paint them on cave walls or anything?
Well, we haven't found any cave paintings of stegodons like we have for mammoths in Europe.
It's too bad.
But we do know that humans and stegodons interacted.
How do we know that?
We've found archaeological sites in Southeast Asia where stegodon remains are found with human tools.
Oh, wow. So they were either hunting them.
Or scavenging them.
Right. Either way, they were using those remains.
Obviously, those bones and tusks would have been really useful.
Yeah, I bet you could make all sorts of things out of them.
Tools, weapons, even building materials.
That's incredible. So these stegodons were a big part of the ecosystem.
They really were. But like all the other proboscideans we've talked about, they eventually went extinct.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I guess it's inevitable.
It's true. And figuring out why they went extinct is tricky.
I bet there are a lot of factors involved.
Definitely, like we talked about before, climate change was a big one.
Yeah, those fluctuating temperatures and shifting habitats would have been tough to deal with.
And for stegodons, it's possible that their ranges shrank as the climate changed.
So they had less space to roam,
And less food.
and then there's competition.
Right. Other animals vying for the same resources.
So it's a constant struggle to adapt and survive.
It is, and sometimes those pressures become too great.
Yeah, that makes sense. But wasn't there something else we talked about earlier?
Oh, you mean the impact of humans?
Yeah. As humans spread, they would have encountered stegodons.
Exactly, and hunting could have been a factor in their decline.
It's sad, but it seems like a common story.
It's true, the arrival of humans often coincides with the disappearance of megafauna.
It makes you think about our own impact on the world.
It really does. It's a reminder that we need to be mindful of our actions.
So with the stegodons, it was probably a combination of things.
Yeah, most likely climate change, human activity, and maybe even disease or competition.
It's a complex puzzle with no easy answers.
That's science for you. But even though we don't have all the answers, the story of the stegodons is still fascinating.
It is. It tells us so much about evolution adaptation and the interconnectedness of life.
Exactly, and it reminds us that extinction is a real and powerful force.
It's a little bit sobering, but also inspiring.
How so?
Well, it's inspiring to think about how these creatures adapted and thrived for millions of years.
That's true. They were able to overcome so many challenges.
And even though they're gone, they've left behind this incredible legacy.
Their fossils tell a story that we're still trying to understand.
It's like a window into the past.
And it makes you wonder what other secrets are still out there waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have. We've gone from Africa to Asia, from mammoths to mastodons, from gomphotheres to stegodons.
It's been a whirlwind tour of the proboscidean family.
And hopefully you've learned a lot about these incredible creatures.
I know I have. It's amazing to think about how diverse and successful they were.
And how they adapted to so many different environments.
Yeah, they were truly remarkable creatures.
And even though they're extinct, their story continues to fascinate us.
That's the power of paleontology, right?
It is. It's a journey of discovery that never really ends.
So what's next for us on this journey? What other mysteries are out there?
Well, we were talking about how all these different proboscideans went extinct.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad ending to such an amazing story.
I know, but their fossils give us a glimpse into these incredible worlds that existed millions of years ago.
It's like we're time travelers piecing together a puzzle.
Exactly. And each new discovery helps us understand these animals and their environments better.
So thinking back on all the proboscideans we've talked about, what are some of the big takeaways?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is their adaptability.
Yeah, they were able to live in so many different places.
From the African savannas to the frozen tundra of the Ice Age.
And they evolved all sorts of amazing adaptations.
Those spiraled tusks, those cone-shaped cusps on their teeth, those flattened shovel-like tusks of the gomphotheres.
It's incredible how evolution shaped them over millions of years.
And each adaptation tells a story about how they interacted with their world.
And with each other.
Exactly. They were competing for resources, finding their niches, figuring out how to survive.
It's a reminder that even the biggest and most impressive creatures are still vulnerable.
To change.
Yeah, to changes in the climate, to competition, to new predators.
And to the impact of humans.
It's a sobering thought, but it's also important to remember.
We need to learn from the past and try to protect the incredible diversity of life that we have today.
Absolutely. So where do we go from here? What's next in the world of proboscidean research?
Well, there are still so many questions to answer and mysteries to uncover.
Like what?
Well, we're still learning about their social structures, their migration patterns, their diets.
And with new technologies like ancient DNA analysis, we're able to get a much clearer picture of their evolutionary relationships.
It's an exciting time to be a paleontologist.
It sounds like it. So for anyone listening who wants to learn more, where should they start?
Well, there are some great museums with incredible proboscidean exhibits.
And lots of books and articles written by experts in the field.
And of course, there's always more to discover online.
Yeah, the internet is a treasure trove of information.
Just be sure to check your sources and look for reputable websites and scientific publications.
Good advice. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of mammoths and their relatives, I have to say it's been an incredible journey.
It has. We've traveled through time, met some amazing creatures, and learned so much about evolution, adaptation, and extinction.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that even though these animals are gone, their stories continue to inspire and amaze us.
And they remind us that the history of life on Earth is a complex and ever-changing tapestry.
Well said. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep wondering about the incredible world around us.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll make an amazing discovery yourself.
That's the dream.
This is your beat to know. This is your beat to know.
All right, get ready for a deep dive into the world of mammoths.
Mammoths.
You know, those magnificent Ice Age giants. We got some incredible material from you guys, and I can't wait to dig into it.
Oh yeah, this is going to be fun.
We're going to uncover their epic evolutionary journey, all their amazing adaptations, and even how they interacted with humans, both past and present.
It's a story that spans millions of years, really captures the imagination.
Well, no, did you know there were dwarf mammoths?
Oh yeah. Island dwarfism.
Crazy. And get this, we might even see mammoth-elephant hybrids in the future.
Yeah, the science is advancing rapidly.
Wild. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start at the beginning.
Okay, sounds good.
So where does this mammoth tale begin?
Well, it's funny, when we think of mammoths, we usually picture those woolly mammoths trudging through the snow.
Yeah, the classic image.
But their story actually begins much earlier and in a much warmer climate. We're talking Africa, about 6 million years ago, the Pliocene epoch. That's where we find the earliest known members of the mammoth family.
Africa. So they weren't always these cold weather icons.
Nope, not at all. Early species like Mammuthus subplanifrons were hanging out in Africa, evolving those trademark tusks that would become so iconic later on.
So those curly tusks were already in the works back then.
Oh yeah, already had that twist.
That's amazing. But how did they go from African heat to those frozen Ice Age landscapes?
Well, around 3 million years ago, things started to change. These early mammoths started migrating out of Africa, spreading into Europe and Asia.
So they were like the original explorers.
Exactly. And as they moved into new environments, the climate was changing too. They had to adapt to survive.
Survival of the fittest, right?
Exactly. And adapt they did. They evolved through a series of distinct species, each one fine-tuned for its environment.
So what kind of adaptations are we talking about?
Well, take their teeth, for instance. Early mammoths had molars with 8 to 10 enamel ridges, perfect for grinding the vegetation of their time. But as climates changed and they moved into new areas, their teeth had to keep up. We start to see more and more enamel ridges, up to 12, 14 in some species.
More ridges, tougher food.
Exactly. More ridges meant more chewing power for tougher vegetation as their world changed around them.
It's amazing how those little details can tell us so much.
I know, right? And this trend of increasingly specialized teeth continued. In Eastern Asia, about 1 million years ago, we see the emergence of the steppe mammoth, Mammuthus trogontherii. Their molars had even more ridges, 1820 to be precise. And it's this species that eventually gives rise to the iconic woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius, that ultimate symbol of the Ice Age.
The woolly mammoth. Okay, so they weren't just a sudden appearance. They were millions of years in the making.
Millions of years of evolution, perfectly adapted for those harsh, frigid conditions.
All right, let's talk about those adaptations. I mean, everyone knows about that thick, woolly coat, but what else helped them survive?
Well, have you ever noticed how woolly mammoths have smaller ears and tails than, say, modern elephants?
Now that you mention it, yeah.
Those weren't just a fashion statement in the Ice Age. They were all about minimizing heat loss. Evolution favors efficiency, and the woolly mammoth was a masterclass in cold weather survival.
Makes sense. Every little bit helps when you're dealing with sub-zero temperatures. But what about those enormous curved tusks? Weren't they more of a hindrance than a help in a snowy landscape?
Those tusks were multi-purpose tools, essential for survival. They probably used them for clearing snow, foraging for food, and of course defense against predators.
Oh yeah, I guess you don't want to mess with a mammoth with those tusks.
Not at all. But I also wonder if they played a role in their social lives too, like a status symbol or something.
I never thought about it like that.
Right. Adds another layer to understanding them. And speaking of understanding them, we can't forget about those incredible frozen mammoth discoveries.
Oh yeah, those perfectly preserved mammoths found in the permafrost, like the Berezovka mammoth discovered in 1901.
Exactly. That one was found with grass still between its teeth, like it died suddenly. Even had a broken shoulder blade, maybe from a fall.
Wow, talk about a dramatic end.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
Eh.
And then there's Luba, the baby mammoth found in Siberia in 2007, amazingly well preserved.
Oh yes, Luba. She was still a baby, right?
Yeah, it's still nursing. But here's the thing. They found traces of fecal matter in her intestines.
Wait, what?
It seems a little strange, but modern elephant calves sometimes eat their mother's feces to get the right gut bacteria for digesting plants.
So Luba was getting a head start on her gut microbiome.
Exactly. Fascinating, isn't it? And from other woolly mammoth remains, we know they nurse for at least 3 years, gradually switching to a plant-based diet.
3 years. That's a long childhood.
It is. But it wasn't just about food and warmth. It probably gave them time to learn survival skills, how to navigate their environment, and all the social dynamics of the herd.
Speaking of social dynamics, we see some hints of that in the way humans depicted mammoths in their art, right?
Oh, absolutely. Those cave paintings offer a glimpse into a world where humans and mammoths coexisted. It's incredible.
Yeah, and they're everywhere. Cave paintings, engravings, even sculptures. We found them all over Europe and Asia, some dating back tens of thousands of years.
Like Ruffinac Cave in France, over 159 mammoth depictions, some over 2 meters long.
Imagine our ancestors huddled in those caves, creating those images. What was going through their minds?
It really makes you think. And the connection between humans and mammoths goes even deeper than just art. For prehistoric humans, mammoths weren't just a subject for their art, they were a vital resource.
Right, you're talking about hunting. What an undertaking that must have been.
It would have taken incredible skill and bravery. We find evidence of these hunts etched into their bones, butchering marks, and the tools they used. Spearheads, knives, all designed to process these massive animals.
It's a reminder of how intertwined our history is with these creatures. And speaking of history, let's talk about the trade in mammoth ivory. It's been a valuable commodity for a long time, right?
Oh, absolutely. Mammoth ivory has been prized for its beauty and durability for millennia. We're talking intricate carvings, tools, the works.
And with the ban on elephant ivory, the mammoth ivory trade has really taken off, hasn't it?
It has. The thawing permafrost in Siberia has unearthed tons of mammoth ivory, and the trade is booming. But of course, it raises ethical questions. Is it right to exploit the remains of these creatures?
And could it have unintended consequences for living elephants?
Exactly. It's a complex issue. And that brings us to another captivating aspect of the mammoth story: de-extinction.
De-extinction. The idea of bringing woolly mammoths back to life is mind-boggling.
It is, isn't it?
I've read about scientists trying to insert mammoth genes into elephant cells, basically creating a hybrid. Is that really possible?
It is a possibility. The science is rapidly advancing. We're talking gene editing, cloning, all kinds of incredible techniques.
But can we even call it a woolly mammoth if it's created in a lab?
That's a great question. What defines a species, and what are the ethical implications?
Big questions indeed. But before we dive into those, let's clear up something. Mammoths and mastodons, they're not the same thing, right? I always get them mixed up.
Ah, good point. While both mammoths and mastodons belong to the order Proboscidea, they were actually quite different animals.
So like distant cousins on the elephant family tree.
Exactly. And you can tell them apart by their teeth. Remember those ridged molars mammoths used for grazing? Well, mastodons had cone-shaped cusps on their molars, perfect for browsing on twigs and leaves.
So different teeth, different diets, different evolutionary paths.
It's amazing how those small details can tell us so much.
It is. And it reminds us that even in extinction, these incredible creatures can still teach us so much.
Oh, absolutely. They're a window into the past, a testament to the power of evolution, and a reminder of our own place in the grand scheme of things.
Well said. All right, we've covered a lot of ground, but we're just getting started.
Can't wait to see what else we uncover.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with more mammoth mystery.
This is what you need to know. This is what you need to know.
It's amazing to think, those frozen mammoths, like the Berezovka one, they're like snapshots from the Ice Age.
I know. It's like they froze in time. We can see what they ate, what kind of environment they lived in, even how they died.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it helps us reconstruct not just their individual lives, but the whole ecosystem they were a part of.
It's like having a window into the past. We can almost picture them there, roaming those vast, icy landscapes.
Oh, absolutely. And they weren't alone out there. They lived in herds, just like modern elephants do.
So they had complex social structure.
Oh, yeah. We see evidence of that in their remains. And also, remember those cave paintings we talked about?
Yeah.
Many of them show groups of mammoths together, interacting, maybe even communicating.
It's funny. I keep thinking back to that baby mammoth, Luba.
Luba. Oh, she's fascinating.
Remember how they found traces of fecal matter in her intestines?
Ah, yes. A little strange, but it tells us a lot.
Right. It seems gross, but it actually shows us how important those early years were for developing a healthy gut microbiome.
Exactly. Coprophagy, as it's scientifically known, played a crucial role.
Coprophagy.
Eating feces.
Oh, right.
It might sound unappealing, but for young mammoths, it was a way to acquire those essential microbes from their mothers, especially important given how long they nursed.
So those early years were not just about getting bigger, but about building that internal ecosystem, getting ready for a life of chewing on tough plants.
That's exactly it. And speaking of those interactions, let's go back to the human-mammoth connection for a minute. Remember those cave paintings?
Yeah, they were incredible.
They point to a relationship that was more than just predator and prey. Those images suggest a level of fascination, maybe even reverence.
I was particularly struck by Rouffignac Cave in France. Over 159 depictions of mammoth. Some huge.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think our ancestors saw in those mammoths?
It makes you wonder, right, were they symbols of strength? Did they hold some spiritual significance?
It's fascinating to speculate. And remember, the connection went beyond just imagery. Mammoths were also a critical resource for survival.
You're talking about hunting again. It must have been quite the challenge to take down a woolly mammoth.
Oh, a monumental task. Imagine the planning, the coordination, the bravery involved.
I can only imagine.
We find spearheads embedded in mammoth bones, evidence of careful strategies. Perhaps they drove them into traps or ambushed them at watering holes.
Yeah, it must have been quite a sight.
And a vital one for their survival. But of course, they likely scavenged carcasses too. Nothing would have gone to waste in those harsh environments.
Right, they would have used every part of the animal. And that brings us back to the topic of mammoth ivory, a valuable commodity for centuries.
Oh, for millennia. Mammoth ivory was prized for its beauty and durability.
Intricate carvings, tools, even art objects.
And today, with the ban on elephant ivory, mammoth ivory has experienced a resurgence.
I've seen some amazing carvings made from mammoth ivory. It's quite beautiful. But is it ethical? I mean, are we just exploiting these extinct creatures?
It's a valid question, and a complex one. Some argue that using mammoth ivory could help protect living elephants.
Right, by reducing the demand for elephant ivory.
Exactly. But others worry that it could actually fuel the illegal trade by making ivory in any form more desirable.
It's a tricky situation. And then there's the whole de-extinction question. Bring back the woolly mammoth.
Ah, de-extinction. The science is moving so fast, it's hard to keep up.
I know. It's both exciting and a little scary. Is it really possible, though?
Well, the possibilities are expanding rapidly. Scientists are exploring gene editing, cloning, even using surrogate elephant mothers.
It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
It really is. But imagine the ethical questions. What would be the impact on existing ecosystems? What about the welfare of these resurrected mammoths?
Yeah, could they even survive in today's world?
And would a genetically engineered mammoth even be a true woolly mammoth? It's a debate that will continue for years to come.
I can see why. But regardless of whether they ever walk the earth again, the woolly mammoth continues to fascinate and inspire us.
They certainly do. Their story tells us about adaptation, about extinction, and about our own impact on the planet.
It's a story that's still unfolding, too. With every new discovery, we learn more about these incredible creatures.
Exactly. And those discoveries rely on a whole team of scientists, not just paleontologists.
It's like a scientific puzzle, right? With everyone contributing their expertise.
It is. And those frozen carcasses are key pieces of the puzzle. They provide so much information that we can't get from bones alone: DNA, tissue samples, even the contents of their stomachs.
It's like having a time machine. We can travel back to the Ice Age and see what these animals were like, what they ate, how they lived.
It's incredible. And it's all thanks to the dedication of scientists from various fields, all working together to understand these fascinating creatures.
So what's next for mammoth research?
Oh, who knows what wonders we might uncover. There's still so many mysteries to solve, so much more to learn.
Well, I, for one, can't wait to see what the future holds for mammoth research.
Me neither. It's an exciting time to be studying these incredible Ice Age giants.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back with one final segment where we'll delve into the potential and the pitfalls of de-extinction.
This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
All right, welcome back to our mammoth deep dive. We've gone through their epic evolution, their incredible adaptations, and even their interactions with our ancestors.
It really paints a picture of these Ice Age giants, doesn't it?
It does, but how do we actually know all this stuff? What are the tools scientists are using to unravel these mammoth mysteries?
You know, what's really cool is how mammoth research has become this interdisciplinary effort.
Like a scientific team effort.
Exactly. We've got paleontologists, geneticists, climatologists, archaeologists, all working together.
So it's not just digging up bones anymore.
Oh, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest game changers has been ancient DNA.
Ah, DNA, the blueprint of life.
And those frozen mammoths, they're not just preserving bones and tissues, they're preserving ancient DNA too.
So we can actually look at the genes of a mammoth that lived tens of thousands of years ago.
We can. Scientists have even sequenced the entire woolly mammoth genome.
Wow. So what can we learn from all that genetic information?
Well, for one, we can compare the woolly mammoth genome to that of its closest living relative, the Asian elephant.
To see it makes them different.
Exactly. We can pinpoint the genes responsible for those classic mammoth traits: the thick fur, the cold tolerance.
So we can literally see the genetic code for those adaptations.
We can. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this ancient DNA is also fueling the de-extinction debate.
Right. Bringing back the woolly mammoth, is that science fiction or is it a real possibility?
The science is advancing so rapidly, it's hard to say for sure. We're talking gene editing, cloning,
I've heard about scientists trying to insert mammoth genes into elephant cells to create a hybrid embryo.
It's one of the approaches being explored, definitely.
That's mind-blowing. But what about the ethical considerations and the practical challenges?
Oh, there are tons of hurdles. Even if we could create a viable embryo, who would be the surrogate mother? And would a mammoth even be able to thrive in today's world?
And what about the impact on existing ecosystems? Could reintroducing a long-extinct species be harmful?
Those are all huge questions. Some scientists believe that bringing back mammoths could help restore the Arctic grasslands, even combat climate change.
Really? How so?
Well, mammoths were ecosystem engineers. They helped maintain those grasslands, which are crucial for trapping carbon and preventing permafrost thaw.
So bringing them back could be like a giant, furry climate solution?
Potentially. But, on the other hand, introducing a species that's been gone for thousands of years could have unpredictable consequences.
Right. It's a delicate balance, and we need to proceed with caution.
Absolutely. It's a decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. But it really makes you think about our role in the world, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, mammoths were around for millions of years before humans came along, and their disappearance coincides with our arrival.
It makes you wonder about our responsibility to protect the amazing diversity of life on our planet.
Well said. But even if woolly mammoths never roam the earth again, their story continues to inspire us.
It's a story of adaptation, of extinction, and it's a story that's still unfolding.
It is. And thanks to scientific advancements, we're getting closer to understanding these incredible creatures than ever before.
Exactly. Who knows what other mysteries will unravel in the future?
It's an exciting time for mammoth research, and we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep those brains curious and stay tuned for more incredible journeys into the world of knowledge.
This is your need to know.
Seconds on veins. Spark history melts in the back of the bed. Chasing fingers, chasing ghosts in the rain. Like a whisper of silver, your words are slick. Carved in smoke and I can't do it. Skin's just paper that fades to air. Write your name, but there's nobody there. Screaming echoes, gathered dust. Hush, hush, hush. Paint a portrait in skin with invisible eyes. Your masterpiece, forgotten, dies. Ooh, self-portraits in invisible ink. Invisible ink, invisible ink. Twisting colors, bleed and drink. The mirror's bright, framed in the flickering light. Drawn by whispers on the cover of night. Sound takes teeth into your face. Scratches like flashes in glass. Every shadow buried in the past. Ink in the cracks, staining deep. Blood knows the secrets you keep. Burn all the edges, leave no clue. Memory cracks, nothing's left of you. Ooh, ah. Tick tock, where do you go? Sinking like anchors in undertow. A coat of vanishing paint on every face. On your pain, don't forget your name. Breathe like ashes scattered by wind. Ashen slicing death and sin. Here today, gone in a blink. Wrapped in shades, submerged in the ink. Come in echoes, gust. Hush, hush, hush. Paint a portrait in skin with invisible eyes. Your masterpiece, forgotten, dies. Ooh, oh, oh. Self-portraits in invisible ink. Invisible ink, invisible ink, invisible ink, invisible ink. Lines go crooked, ink starts to fade. Cast off sketches inside a grave. Stitch the thoughts with a needle of fire. Threads unravel with sick desire. Like thunder, like thunder, like crime. Gotta admit, it's a hell of a void. scattered dust. Hush, hush, hush. Paint a portrait in skin with invisible eyes. Your masterpiece, forgotten dies. Ooh, oh, oh. Self-portraits in invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Drink. Fade and erase heavenly. Ocean of things no one will drink. Self-portraits in invisible ink. Just in colors no one will think. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible. Flaming echo skies. Hush, hush, hush. Paint a portrait in skin with invisible eyes. Your masterpiece, forgotten dies. Ooh, oh, oh. Self-portraits in invisible ink. 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 Drink. Fade and erase heavenly. Ocean of things no one will drink. Self-portraits in invisible ink. Just in colors no one will think. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible ink. Invisible. Flaming echo skies. Hush, hush, hush. Paint a portrait in skin with invisible eyes. Your masterpiece, forgotten dies. Ooh, oh, oh. Self-portraits in invisible ink. 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 Losing colors, need a drink. Losing colors, need a drink. Self-portraits in invisible